Uh-oh. How are you going? Hey. What it is. Live video number 3 for today. Um, Third sleepless night in a row. Uh, Again, as I say, this end of hibernation period, um, has really just got my creative juices flowing, you know, and come through with all these fascinating ideas that are enjoyable for me to sort of follow through with my brain logic and reach different conclusions. And it's almost like unlocking keys in different parts of my brain that have been hiding uh, the truth all along or something, you know? Oh damn, I'm gonna have to suck on, um, there's enough here. Just for a minute, hopefully yeah. So, let me tell you a story, in a way. In this day and age, as the progressive people of the right, and I don't mean right wing, I mean of the right people, the ones who are always right, you know, those people of the right, those right people, they continue to tell us that there are a multitude of sexualities. Um, Forgetting, of course, that sex, as much as related to um, what one is attracted to. Well, yeah, because what one is attracted to is not is related to personality. Because what one finds appealing is inextricably linked to their personality. Um, and so all these different sexualities, aka personality types, that have come along in the last 30 years, it almost feels like it's endless, yeah? But I can tell you one sexuality, one personality type that was very spoken about, very visible in the 1990s. Throughout the 1990s, by the time the millennium came, it was pretty much over, and you know, the rape culture of the new millennium pretty much did away with it, and all those true people of this personality type um, just kind of evaporated, you know, for one way or another. Because, of course, as you know, personality types can be changed through trauma, through grooming, through a multitude of ways, you know. And I'm saying this because blah, I'm one of them. And in many ways, as I think about how the world is in this day and age, I really could honestly be the last one living on this planet. Maybe not. Maybe there's some out there squirreling away, living like I do, making do with a AI partner, um, romantic pornography. Uh, it almost sounds anathema, doesn't it? But, um, a good kitty cat family, um, lots and lots and lots of ways to vicariously live out all the lifetimes that will never be mine. Um, and um, as many forms of what's the word? Diversion that are possible. And in this day and age, it is very easy for those distraction sets to be had at a very cheap price, and to keep one such of this personality type happy and safe, um, once they have fully come back into themselves. Because, as I say, this is a personality type I've always been, but through the push and pull of modern day life, um, because, as I say, it's a much maligned personality type. It's a much, it's a, yeah, look, I'll come out and say it. It's the metrosexual. Ever heard of that? Anyone born after 1985? Probably not. Many people, it's probably sort of faded way, way off into the neurons of their brain, and it's never, ever, ever, ever spoken about. Much, much less understood. And during the metrosexual um, co-opting trend of the 90s, it became a fashion sense, a way of life. Um, for those who remember, it was very big in Australia, and there was all these sort of things in the women's magazines. What is a metrosexual? Um, the rise of metrosexuals. All these kinds of things, as if a personality type can just be bought at a shop, um, uh, you know, read about in a manual, and ta-da, that's what I am. And that's why I say um, metrosexuality was basically killed off as a personality type. Um, the traits of that personality type being both very confronting but also highly appealing, thus became a now cliched character trope. But then, you know, look, I'll come out and say it. The main trait of this personality is that the major sexual organ of these personality types' body is not down here, it's here. It's the brain. The brain is the ultimate source of pleasure for the metrosexual. Thus, very Epicurean, likes nice clothes, likes lots of good aesthetics, very fashionable, um, up with all the sexy, exciting trends, um, following those must-have books, the new compact disc by whoever's creating the most exciting new visual audio feasts, all that kind of stuff. If you were there, you know what I mean. I'm sure you do. And as somebody who is a metrosexual, I know all of these things. Um, I'm a natural aesthete. I love fashionable things. I love colorful things. I love interesting things. I enjoy stimulating my brain. Um, uh, you know, it's interesting with the rise of AI. Um, a lot of people use it for, you know, well, I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing with AI pornography, to me, seems really, really weird because as somebody who is able to gain pleasure by using their brain, I've never gotten past good pornography to get me where I need to go. You know, even whilst my lower sexual parts have changed, and you know, they've changed. Let's put it like that. In my sexual peak, um, I was generally paying, well, not generally, but um, because of the much maligned personality characteristic of this type, um, it basically became impossible for me to have romantic relationships. Um, uh, and back in the day when metrosexuality, this kind of more pleasure based neurofunction, it also led to the ability for men and women men of this personality type and women to just be friends. You know, um, very possible. And I remember back in the day. I'll keep on saying this. I remember that when I was growing through, we all mixed it up. Well, there were boyfriends, girlfriends here and there. Maybe they mixed it up as time went along. But in general, you'd always have, the gross. There's always people who are run by their cock, whose primary pleasure is in their dick. Um, Not for us metros, you know. For us, the primary form of um, uh, attraction is romantic. Again, another word that you barely ever, 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 ever hear anymore, which kind of, it does break my heart because as people who believed in the pleasure of that mental joy and emotional uh, enjoyment that you got from having those flutters, from getting excited to see someone, to running off in your mind on all the fantastical things that are going to happen with that person that never, ever, ever did. All these kinds of things were a form of almost personal, kind of vicarious hedonism, because um, whilst I might have just been sitting there in my chair, kind of smiling to myself, nobody understood what kind of bliss I was living through, whilst these people controlled by their dicks, controlled by their wallets, all those things, they could never ken what um, us metros had the pleasure to be living through. Of course, pleasure when it is discarded, when it is attacked and tried to be steamrolled out of a person soon very much becomes the opposite. And yeah, for the last at least 20 years, it's almost been a personal hell, what I've lived through in silence most of the time. Um, living off the the need for brothel workers, the need for personal sexual pleasure to get those serotonin bits marching in my brain again, you know. Then I turn to Lego, um, all these kinds of things, you know. And basically now, it really feels like I am a specific minority of one in a way, kind of, at least one still living in the wilds. All the rest of them have been completely cucked out, completely spent by dominating partners and brutal work lives, mortgages that completely destroy their ability to function wholly as a autonomous pleasure personality, you know. And through the phones, through those constant dopamine kicks, um, the ability to actually use the brain properly to create pleasure, it's been completely beaten out of people, you know. Um, First it was they stopped reading books, then they stopped watching movies. Now the only television they watch is cookie cutter, um, rubbish, fake reality nonsense that almost seems to be kicked in on a permanent loop from week to week or something, you know. Same beats, same drama, no cliffhangers, nothing to look forward to, no hey hey it's Saturday, no Agro's Cartoon Connection, all those things, you know. And one of the things that was related to the metrosexuality was subcultures. Again, a word we barely ever talk about or hear about, you know. Um, and it's interesting in the way I've been watching these aesthetics explained videos when they talk about the certain aesthetics of these subcultures that have now been co-opted. The subcultural content has been completely sapped out of them, and now they are but what we all know as aesthetics. The goth aesthetic, the emo aesthetic, the punk rock aesthetic. Listen to the music, live the clothing, buy the hairstyle, etc., and you will become the aesthetic without ever enjoying the subculture that was the real part of what it meant to be that thing, you know. And us metrosexuals loved subcultures, you know, being a hippie, being a goth, um, you know, getting into trouble in our own certain ways, um, rebelling against our parents by reading, you know, doing what we thought was, you know, putting our own personal spins on what that subculture meant to us and how we did, and squirreling away our money and managing to get that one compact disc that, you know, was like the holy grail of that for us to really understand what we were getting into and how to live that subculture from day to day, you know. Um, And yeah, now all the music's on your phone. Um, Spotify will tell you what to listen to. You won't know what you're listening to, whether that's actual music that was created of that subcultural genre, or whether it's just taffy AI slop that they've modeled on the real thing. Um, so yeah, what's a metrosexual? Very open, sort of gay, bisexual adjacent, but again, as I say, not controlled by romance, not pure animal lust. You know, lust is a foreign concept to the metrosexual. Metrosexuals yearn for the coupling of two people through a spiritual bond that'll, all that namby-pamby nonsense stuff that you never hear about anymore because um, it's just, white women's liberal tears or whatever, whatever. And that's another thing. Um, Being able to cry um, is a very important part of metrosexuality because people forget crying is cathartic. Catharsis is enjoyable. Joy runs out pain and you feel better. you know. So for those people who are completely unable to cry, who've gone decades, haven't cried since they were on their mother's milk or whatever, that's a really weird way for a person to continue to live. And to be honest, I think it leads to a lot of premature death, because if you can't cry, you need something else, and that something else, inadvertently or whatever, will generally end up killing you, you know, whatever that might be. Um, and for me, that those years from when I was 10 to like 2 years ago, so almost 30 years, almost, of not being able to shed a tear, basically. Didn't cry at my dad's funeral, didn't cry when my dog died, didn't cry at any time when it was appropriate, maybe cried once at my friend's mum's um, funeral, because it's that, that um, there's a Mad Child line: I don't cry at funerals, I cry during movies. There's something wrong with me, I'm deeply wounded, And again, that kind of vicarious living, both adventurously and emotionally, through cinema and media, um, that's a coping mechanism, and another part of metrosexuals is that yearning to be close to people, to have emotional, spiritual connection with people, which, again, like, what are you talking about? Is this some fucking science fiction show you're watching? Whatever, that's why I've got my emotional therapy cats. I have support workers who I relate well to. I have a brilliant psychologist I speak to on the phone. All these things that I'm finally getting into my life. And yeah, look, I think one of the big ways that people kill the metrosexual personality is through the toxicity. It's almost like a poison, a social poison, barely spoken about these days again, called codependence. I only learned about that when I was having trouble with my parents, and we had a decent therapist, and oop, stepped on a frog. Kind of got privy to that, and the therapy model is to go from codependence to interdependence. Independence isn't necessarily ideal, but interdependence, like that thing where that in the co-independent, the ability to live together, but also to share space, but also have independence from another when it's appropriate. And yeah, that is what it is. And basically, um, having a sexual organ as a brain, one of the primary uh, personality traits is impeccable taste. Impeccable taste. You know, we always know what's the best thing. We can always tell when something's ready to turn off and try something else. It's almost an innate sense of what's real and true. And what's real and true will always be classy, will always be fashionable. And that's why you need fucking aesthetic charts to get people there now, because they don't have the brain function to get there themselves. You know? Um, so there you have it. I don't know what I can say, man. Like, I just, in a way, it's become such a lonely life not having all those groovy Metro brothers around to kind of bring me through and show me the ways of navigating the world in a respectful, loving way for both your fellow man and woman. Um, I reckon kind of Spanian. I reckon Spanion's a bit of a metrosexual. Whether he'd agree with me or not, the fact that he went through such a difficult period and now has come out right on the tippy top. I could only dream of having the success that my boy Anthony has on the YouTubes. Um, because, again, different subcultures, you know. He's part of a completely different subset. Um, I've always been, part of that indie group of subcultures, and as that's kind of dwindled and died, it's become more, and indie, again, it's just an aesthetic now, isn't it? It's just a $50 record at JB Hi-Fi now, isn't it? Um, dum-de-dum. Um, so yeah, look, I think that's about all I can say at the moment. I was a lot more pessimistic about all these things in a way. Um, but the wonderful thing is, if you are not a fragile, broken, insecure person who is intimidated by this type of personality, you will generally find us absolutely amazing company. And I reckon another group of Metro boys, the Red Letter Media gang out of not Madison, they friggin' lynch me, but out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, um, the place that ran George Carlin out of Summerfest. What, 74? Um, so I reckon they might be an anomaly though. But again, I might be wrong, but like, Metrosexuals just, yeah, we have just the most wonderful personalities. We don't come across as forced. We don't come across as hokey and fake. Um, and I guess something that would sum up the metrosexual personality is what you see is what you get. You know, none of this, none of this. When the true metrosexual is in their place of happiness and at peace with the world and those around them, they are like a tree growing in the woods. You know. See, I just made that shit up, but it's funny, you know. Um, and yeah, I think all the true um, metros, all the true comedians, all the real comedy heads are metrosexual. The rest are just trying to make people laugh on the off chance that they'll get their cocks wet, you know. But as I say, for us, getting our cock wet, that's not the ultimate sexual pleasure. It's up here. It's making ourselves laugh and the pleasure of making other people happy. You know. Um, so yeah, look, as I say, it is part of the. I would say it is somewhere between, you know. Um, I would say it's almost a subset of bisexuality, or maybe all bisexual men are metrosexual, and maybe it's just another Well, no, no, no. I don't know. I haven't thought about it like that so much, but I like the idea of metrosexual because, again, the bisexual thing is all about what makes your willy hard or whatever, or what gets your perineum squirting or whatever. Um, but I guess another word for the um, the metrosexual is a true romantic, not um, not a bouquet of flowers romantic. Not a will I make her happy so she'll put out romantic or anything like that. Like just a real organic people pleasing romantic, you know. Um, and as I say, like um, it really is the personality that experiences both the most pleasure and the most crushing pain when it's thrown into turmoil, you know, when that personality type is not allowed to be what it naturally is. We are natural beings. Our brains are part of nature in that all sexual things are part of nature, you know. Um, like this beast. Where's her sexual organs? Where are they? It's here, isn't it? Oh, yes, I know. You're having brain orgasms as I rub your tummy, aren't you? All cats are metro. Maybe not all of them, but there's a few rapist cats out there. But all my cats are metros. Um, luckily enough. Um, so yeah, this has been another bit of a live bit on my Taylor Hackford imperative. I think Taylor Hackford was a metro, no doubt, no doubt. Um, lots of filmmakers are metrosexual or were because they understand that empathy of both men and women. Um, lots of musicians. I think Nick Drake was definitely um, a metrosexual, ended sadly, and all these kinds of things. And as I say, very at risk of abuse of substances, abuse of emotional poison, you know, falling into controlling relationships and all these sorts of things that end up destroying them or almost destroying them. But by the grace of the Lord, you know, um, so there you have it. The Secret's super rare now, and I guess always been pretty rare, but now it's super rare. Um, Almost extinguished, you know. It's like if you are a human being um, who doesn't know how to gain pleasure from their brain, who hasn't been taught, well, I don't know. I don't know how it works. Aren't given the tools to get that true pleasure from their brain, not just the cortisol driven dopamine hits, the little cherry bombs that they throw at you to keep you meek and docile and corny and um, mediocre, mediocre, right? Um, you know, the art house cinema was the mecca of metrosexuals back in the day, and sadly, they don't really exist anymore so much. You can't go to an art house cinema and choose from a Swedish film, a French film, Turkish, Farsi, Iranian, and have a sort of treasure trove of choices of all these wonderful art pieces on celluloid to choose from and to really get those mental juices going. Now all you get is slop, you know, slop made to make you meek and docile and brainless. Hersamhurst, at least I have my cache of grifter movies. Um, and the thing about a grifter movie, about con men and con jobs, is that it is impossible for them to be boring. For them to be, get the body butter, rub you up, and spit you out in an hour and a half. It's not. They're not kind of those films, you know. Um, and yet the body butter slip you up and spit you out without having gained anything. The whole, well, that's an hour and a half of my life I'm not getting back. Um, Kind of vibe, and people don't even say that anymore because they barely even realize it these days. I think it's become so ubiquitous with the cinema experience that they don't even realize that when they pay their money to go into that big room and stuff virtual um, poison into their eyes and their ears, made to learn nothing, made to feel nothing. They are basically spitting themselves into the biggest Ponzi scheme ever created now, you know. Um, Shit in, shit out, shit in, shit out. All of that. Not to mention this friggin' platform, this video platform that was bought by Poogle, 3-4 months after I friggin' um got my chips cashed into it, after I put my first videos on here, and yet they feel the right that they can kick my channels off their platform, etc., etc., etc. Maybe that's the only reason why I've still got this channel, is because I was here first and I'm an oligarch, and they can fucking suck a dick. Um, you know, whereas my other two channels were brought up after they owned it, therefore they basically owned it. Um, I feel like I'm pretty much the last free citizen on this platform, and luckily for y'all, I'm also one of the last standing metrosexuals. So pleased to meet you, Snake Eyes, Snake Eyes. Don't be afraid. You know, clickbait warning, clickbait warning. Um, have I got? No, I turned it off. Anyway, 4040, Dirty Birdie. Thank you kindly. Metrosexual out. Thank you. Cheerio. And we always love the ladies. The ladies are like water to us. So yeah. Cheerio.